I'll be the toast of the town, the girl on the floor. I'm the type of pony every pony should know. I'll be the one to watch the girl on the floor. I'm the type of pony every pony should know. Becoming as popular can be. Making my mark in high society. I'm the belle of the ball, the star of the show. Yeah, I'm the type of pony every pony should know. See how they hang on every word that I speak. My approval glances what they all seek. I'm the creme de la creme, not just another Jane Doe. I'm the type of pony every pony should know. At home, at the opera, on a fancy yacht, becoming the talk of all of Canterlot. I'm the creme de la creme, not just another Jane Doe. Yeah, I'm the type of pony every pony should know. Because I'm the type of pony. Yes, I'm the type of pony. Yes, I'm the type of pony every